guys, and I'm Hannah, and I'm really excited to be talking to you about comedy and satire. There's a variety of tools that make you laugh, sometimes using absurd things, sometimes using antithesis, which is putting two very opposite things together. But usually the things that work for satire also work for comedy. The difference between comedy and satire is that satire is usually something that is comedic but about a very serious topic to deal with a very, very controversial and maybe very, very modern sensitive point, whereas comedy might just be using the same tools for just a laugh. So I want to take you through a PowerPoint that I found online and kind of work y'all through what satire looks like to get you familiar with it for this class. So, the literary elements of satire. So satire is a work that uses ridicule, humor, and wit to criticize and provoke change in human nature and institutions. So it's using the elements that you might see in comedy, like think of stand-up comedy, ridicule, humor, and wit, but it's still using that to criticize and provoke change and human nature and institutions. So the goal of it is to create change or to criticize something that's going on within human nature or a particular institution. Okay, satire, according to awschools.com US presentation, that's where I got it. Satire is always topical, so it's always focused on a specific topic. That is, it is about something that the author feels needs to be exposed or denounced. So that is the goal. It's almost always focused on something that the author feels needs to be exposed or denounced. There is a goal, and it's like, I want to show how dumb something is. I want to show how dangerous something is. I need to show how bad this thing is, and I'm going to do it in a humorous way so that people are going to be more accepting of it. It is often a painful, absurd, or foolish person, group, or situation. Those are the things that satire is attacking. A painful, absurd, or foolish person, group, or situation. Now here's a key of satire. The author is always going for producing the unexpected. That's extremely important. The reason it's funny, usually when you're looking at like a satirical cartoon or reading a satirical story, is because you're not really sure what you're going to get, and that unexpected element makes you laugh. You say, oh, this is interesting. I didn't expect that they were going to put two and two together. I didn't expect the world they created. There's something absurd and crazy about how the satirical creator creates the satire, creates the criticism that makes you more accepting of it, that makes you laugh. And there's certain tools that they use to do this. Some of these you can see in comedy. Irony is one of them. So take a look at this picture. See if you can spot the irony. Could give you a few seconds. Okay, so if you can see, the irony is this is a cast of some lungs. If you smoke cigarettes, they can damage your lungs. They can blacken your lungs. Someone is using this cast, this mold, as an ashtray for their own cigarette. So you can see that kind of gives you an example of what irony is. It's like, oh, that's ironic. The best way to kind of explain irony is through examples, using something that's supposed to help with one thing to actually serve the opposite purpose. A paradox, dilemma, or puzzle is another tool. So look at this one. This one is Pinocchio. A paradox is something that seems logical at first, but then is actually illogical. So we know that the whole point of Pinocchio is that he has a nose that grows. So his nose is going to grow, right? Well, it's only going to grow if he lies. So if he's telling the truth and he's saying, my nose will grow now, well, his nose will only grow when he's lying. So it seems logical, but actually it's not logical, because he just told the truth. So his nose isn't going to do anything. He has to say, my nose won't grow. My nose never grows. And then his nose would grow. So he literally can't tell the truth to make his nose grow. So it would be a truth if he had told a lie. So there's no way he can actually say this truthfully to get his nose to grow. Antithesis. So take a second to read this and look at the picture and see how two opposite things are put together to make the joke. Okay, so at first you see reading. You think, okay, a girl's reading a book. That makes sense. But it says she hates to read the same book over and over. And then it has a picture of a girl reading a book. So you're putting two opposite things together that it's actually kind of funny, because what we would imagine is a picture of a girl playing a video game or throwing a book on the counter or something like that. But the picture that they chose is actually a girl reading a book, for she hates to read the same book over and over. So the story the picture is telling is the exact opposite of what the text is saying. A parody or a caricature. Think of Michael Scott from The Office. It's somebody who is a kind of extreme type of person. So Michael Scott is the most like extreme type of boss, like taking all the different types of traits that make you cringe about your boss and putting them into one person. That's another way you can get to it, kind of proving your point with comedy. Okay, so profanity. That can be another way, just that absurd, extreme profanity, especially from like children or houseplants or dogs. An unexpected way of putting very crass language in can cause laughter. Violence or brutality can be a way to cause laughter, but it really depends on how you use it. Like, those ISIS dudes are monsters, and it says journalists beheaded. There's a lot of subtext going on, and it's kind of dealing with violence. Vividness, clarity, or intensity. It's putting boom, 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 all these things out there, and showing you kind of like how intense and vivid and real these things are by side, but in this way using kind of a cartoon image to make it a little more palatable and less in your face. So a car is recalled after 7 deaths, Tylenols are recalled after 7 deaths, a gun is not recalled after at least 32,000 deaths per year for decades. Exaggeration, overstatement, or hyperbole, as you've probably heard. I will literally die if you don't stop using hyperboles incorrectly. So hyperbole is literally like what they're doing. I will literally die. No, that's kind of an exaggeration. They're like, if you don't stop using basically exaggerations or extremes, overstatements incorrectly, that's what this person is doing. So again, what is satire? It's a topical exposure of something an author feels must be denounced. It is often a painful, absurd, or foolish person, group, or situation. Usually the emotion felt by the author is a blend of contempt and amusement. In some works, one almost completely outweighs the other. Sometimes you can really, really feel a strong version of one or the other. Usually it always contains some trace of laughter, no matter how bitter though. Usually you'll always laugh a little, even if it's kind of oof in your face, like that was a lot. If we just had horror, hate, and fear, but no laughter, it would just be a verbal attack against something, which is what kind of separates satire from a verbal attack. If you were to just criticize something harshly, but you didn't have comedy, it wouldn't be satire, it would just be criticism. So when you add that element of comedy, then you have satire. There are two kinds of satirist. An optimist who thinks people are blind and foolish, and he or she wishes to cure them. Okay, if I just show them this in this light, and they're willing to accept it through comedy, I can help make the world better. The other is a pessimist who hates people and wants to punish them, wants to show, in a way, just express themselves and say, look how stupid this is. Satire can take various forms. Monologue. So usually there's just one speaker speaking directly to the audience, often in the form of an essay. A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift is an example of this. We've got a parody. In a way, this is kind of like The Office. It groups up streams to make them absurd. We have a narrative, like Mark Twain's War Prayer. We're going to read a lot of narratives. And then we have books like 1984 and Animal Farm and A Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451. All of these are some of my favorite books. And they introduce a strange world. So it's not our own world, but it's like our world, so that we're more easy to accept what's going on in our world because it's actually a different world. We can have visual art to also satirize things. And we see this a lot with like New Yorker cartoons, Far Side Gallery, and others. And that's it. So get ready for the wild ride.